You probably don't have any trouble spending time playing video games or scrolling through social media on your phone. I'm sure you can easily sit in front of a screen for 2 hours or more without losing focus. But just try to spend even half an hour studying. And suddenly, it's hard. And if you spend another hour working on your project, your enthusiasm disappears right away, doesn't it? And that's even though you logically understand that studying, sports, developing a business, or any other productive activity will benefit you more in the future than TV, your phone, or games. And yet, you choose the easy thing over the hard one. It would seem the reason is obvious. One activity requires effort, the other doesn't. But there are people who have no problem working out, studying, and working every day. Why do they succeed while others don't? Why are they able to do the hard things while others are constantly procrastinating? Is it possible to make hard things easy? To understand this, we need to look at one substance in our brain, dopamine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure molecule, but that's not entirely accurate. Its real role is to create desire. It's dopamine that makes us want things, and this desire becomes the fuel that gives us the motivation to act. Without dopamine, you simply wouldn't want to get out of bed. You wouldn't have the internal drive to do anything. To understand how much this substance affects us, scientists conducted experiments on rats. They implanted electrodes directly into the rats' brains, in the area associated with the reward system. Every time a rat pressed a lever, the scientists stimulated this pleasure center. The results were astonishing. The rats began pressing the lever over and over again, for hours on end, without stopping. They refused food and sleep. All they wanted was to press the lever until they collapsed from exhaustion. This demonstrated the incredible power of dopamine. The substance itself does not bring pleasure, but it makes the desire for pleasure so strong that the organism forgets about everything else. Then the researchers did the opposite. They blocked dopamine production in the brain, and the rats became so apathetic that they couldn't even make themselves get up to drink water. They didn't eat, didn't mate, and showed not the slightest interest in life. If food was placed directly into their mouths, they could still enjoy the taste, but they couldn't bring themselves to approach the food on their own. They simply didn't want to. They lost not pleasure, but the desire to act. It is this substance that makes us capable of getting up, seeking food, and achieving goals. We think that we are driven by hunger or thirst, but that's not entirely true. The most important part of motivation is dopamine. Without it, the desire disappears. And if dopamine levels are low, we don't feel an inner drive, even if we know we should do something. These experiments, of course, are extreme, but they clearly show how dopamine controls human behavior. The same thing happens in our everyday lives. The brain sets priorities based on how much dopamine it expects to receive. If an activity triggers a high release, the brain will seek it out. If it's low, the brain will avoid it. That's why we're easily drawn to things that bring quick pleasure. Tasty food, flashy videos, games, social media. They give an instant spike of dopamine. But when it comes to things where the reward isn't obvious or is delayed, like studying, sports, or work, the brain doesn't see the point in spending energy. It doesn't feel rewarded and therefore doesn't provide motivation. For example, when you're about to eat your favorite dish, your brain releases dopamine in advance, anticipating the pleasure. Even if the food turns out to be unhealthy and only leaves you feeling sluggish and heavy, the brain still remembers it as a dopamine source. It doesn't care about the consequences, it just wants to repeat the experience. Drugs work the same way, heroin, cocaine, and others. They trigger a supernaturally high release of dopamine, and that's exactly why addiction to them becomes almost insurmountable. The brain literally rewrites its priorities, making everything else seem insignificant. But the problem isn't just with drugs. The modern digital environment does the same thing, just more slowly. Social networks, video games, pornography, endless notifications, all of these are sources of dopamine spikes. Every time you check your phone, your brain is hoping for a reward, a message, a like, a new picture, anything at all. And when it happens, it gets a dose of dopamine. You don't realize it, but gradually you become like that rat pressing the lever over and over until it wears itself out. And many people think, so what? It's not harmful, is it? But in reality, it is harmful because the body strives for balance. There is a mechanism called homeostasis, natural equilibrium. For example, if it's cold outside, the body shivers to warm up. If it's hot, it sweats to cool down. The body tries to keep its temperature around 37 degrees no matter what. The brain works the same way. If there's too much dopamine, it reduces the sensitivity of the receptors. Simply put, to feel the same motivation and pleasure, you need more and more stimulation. This is what's called dopamine tolerance. The brain gets used to high levels of excitement, and now everything else seems boring and meaningless. Studying, working, reading books, even socializing with people doesn't elicit a response, because compared to constant dopamine spikes, these are low dopamine activities. That's why it's easier for most people to spend the evening on their phone than to get down to work. Over time, a person stops enjoying life. Everything that used to inspire now seems dull, and the more stimulation they get, the less they feel. The same thing happens to drug addicts when they try to quit. Life without the substance feels empty. But everyone who is addicted to social media, video games, TV series, or sweets experiences the same thing, just in a milder form. Is there anything that can be done about this? Yes, through a dopamine detox. Its goal is to restore the brain's sensitivity. To do this, you need to stop constant stimulation, at least for a while. One day without anything that causes strong dopamine spikes. No phone, no music, no TV shows, no games, no sweets, no entertainment of any kind. No instant pleasures. Only silence and boredom. During this day, you can go for walks, meditate, reflect, or write your thoughts down on paper. At first, it will seem unbearable because the brain is used to constant pleasure. But if you endure it, a reset will happen, your receptors will start to recover, and simple things will bring you joy again. You can think of it this way. If you're used to eating at an expensive restaurant every day, a plain bowl of rice will seem tasteless. But if you go hungry for a few days, that same rice will taste incredibly good. It's the same with dopamine. By depriving yourself of constant stimulation, you regain the ability to enjoy simple things. If going a whole day without pleasures seems too radical, start gently. Pick one day a week and cut out one habit. Your phone, social media, sweets, or games. Even this small step has an effect. You'll feel bored, but it's that boredom that will trigger your recovery. When the brain doesn't get its usual sources of stimulation, it starts looking for other sources of dopamine, and those become useful activities. So, when you consciously deprive yourself of your usual sources of quick stimulation, your brain begins to recover. It's as if it learns to enjoy simple things all over again, taking a walk, reading, fresh air, and peace. This is the effect of dopamine detox. Everything that used to seem boring gradually starts to make sense. You suddenly begin to feel a zest for life, for things that used to pass you by. But if you want to go further, you can take a systematic approach. Not just cutting out everything indiscriminately, but building a balance between high and low dopamine activities. That is, not to get rid of pleasures completely, but to distribute them properly, to use them as a reward rather than as the basis of your existence. For example, you can make a deal with yourself, work first, then reward. If you do an hour of productive work, you can allow yourself 15 minutes of entertainment. Work 8 hours, and in the evening you get 2 hours of rest. The main thing is not to do it the other way around. Why does this work? Because if you start your day with a dopamine peak, your phone, sweets, games, your brain gets a reward before it has earned it. After that, it doesn't need anything else. It's already satisfied, and now everything else seems pointless. But when you do the hard things first and save the pleasure for last, your motivation gradually shifts. You start to feel satisfaction not from entertainment, but from progress. You could even say that you're retraining your brain. After all, dopamine isn't the enemy. It's a force that can work in your favor. It motivates you. You just need to direct it the right way. When you associate pleasure with results rather than with distractions, your energy starts to serve your growth. But if you want radical change, try a full dopamine fast. One day without any stimuli. No phone, no computer, no movies, no music, no tasty food, no socializing. Just you, paper, and your thoughts. This day will show you how much you depend on a constant background of pleasure. At first, you'll feel anxiety, emptiness, boredom. Your brain will crave its usual dose. But if you endure, a shift will happen. Instead of irritation, you'll feel calm. You'll notice time moving more slowly, as if the world has stopped rushing. And in this silence, what was once drowned out by noise will begin to emerge. Your own thoughts, goals, desires. A dopamine detox can be compared to a fast for the mind. When you stop endlessly feeding your brain sweet stimuli, it starts to appreciate real nourishment again. Meaning, attention, genuine action. After that, even a simple book, a walk or work becomes a source of joy. Of course, if you suffer from a serious addiction, such as drugs or chemicals, you need professional help. A sudden withdrawal can cause severe consequences. But if we're talking about habits like social media, gaming, or constant content consumption, you can handle it yourself. And if you're not ready to quit completely, there's a gentler option. Choose one day a week when you cut out one source of pleasure. Don't touch your phone, don't watch TV shows, don't go on social media. This will give your brain a chance to restore its sensitivity. On such days, you'll get bored. And that's wonderful, because it's boredom that will open the door to the things you've been putting off. Suddenly, you'll want to clean up, go for a walk, think, or create something. That's why boredom isn't an enemy, but a tool. When you stop drowning it out with entertainment, it turns into a driving force. Of course, detox alone isn't enough. To truly change your motivation system, you need to reset your source of dopamine. That means learning to enjoy work, movement, and growth. For example, you can track your progress, mark each day when you did something difficult, and consciously praise yourself. Say you cleaned your room, exercised, read 20 pages of a book, or worked on a project. Write it down. Your brain will remember. These are actions that bring satisfaction. Gradually, dopamine will start being released not from scrolling through your feed, but from real progress. It's important to remember, dopamine itself is neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It all depends on where you direct its energy. You can spend it on instant pleasures or invest it in long-term goals. The brain always chooses the path of least resistance. But when you create a system where the reward follows effort and not the other way around, you start to control it yourself. And then even the hardest things stop seeming overwhelming because they become part of the pleasure cycle. We are all to some extent dependent on dopamine, and there's nothing wrong with that. The main thing is awareness. After all, this substance motivates us to achieve, to grow, to win. But if you don't control it, it turns us into slaves to our own habits. Think about it. Do you really want your life to be defined by the number of likes, notifications, and short videos? Or do you want dopamine to drive you toward what truly matters? Growth, health, strength, and success. Sooner or later, everyone faces a choice: to seek easy pleasures or to build a life where pleasure comes from meaning. If you notice that it's getting harder and harder to concentrate, that any serious task triggers inner resistance, this isn't laziness, it's dopamine overload, and the only way to get your energy back is to take a break from constant stimulation. Just give it a try. One day without a screen, one evening without music, 1 hour of silence, and you'll feel your focus returning, your body becoming calmer, and your mind clearer. Then you'll understand a simple truth. Motivation doesn't come on its own. It is born from action. When you start doing, momentum appears. When you move, energy comes. But when you wait for inspiration, you get stuck. Don't let dopamine control you. Make it work for you. Subscribe to the Telegram channel where you can find more content like this about how to reset your brain, regain willpower, and rediscover your zest for life.